Greetings, Homeworthy. I'm Jeff Caldwell. I'm down here in Pennsylvania in Chestnut Hill, the Garden District of Philadelphia. We're visiting my friend Kate Schelter, who I've known for 20 plus years, based in New York City. We both worked in creative fields and we've had a lot of fun over the years, and I'm delighted to be here at her family home that she shares with her husband and 3 children. So come on inside, let's go.
Hi, Jeff.
Kate, how are you?
Come on in.
Mwah. So happy to be here.
Come on in, let me show
you
you around.
It's so beautiful in Chestnut Hill.
Thank you. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Kate Schelter. I'm an artist and a creative director and the author of Classic Style. And Jeff is my dear friend. I have over almost 30 years of experience working first in fashion and art direction, and then illustration and art. I'm so happy that you're here. We're gonna have a lot of fun looking around our house, which is outside of Philadelphia in the Garden District of Chestnut Hill.
And it's so much fun to be in your home, but what's wild is that we've known each other for almost probably 20 years or so. We started as little 20-year-olds in New York City running around, and I feel like my first memory of you was when you were photographing for Vogue.
Yes.
And you were everywhere at every party, and you always looked so beautiful and put together, like you were actually one of your subjects that you were there to capture. You always looked so great and so stylish. And there was just such personality and joie de vivre that came through not just your photographs, but how you are in person. And so that's like one of my first memories of you, was sort of shooting around, parties in New York City. And then, you kind of like really moved into more creative direction. You were working with brands, and we would again see each other at dinners and parties. And we just have had that fun relationship, dancing, the night away places.
Bungalow 8.
Good old
the era of
Bungalow 8.
Bungalow 8.
And it was just always such a breath of fresh air to run into you and to see you. And then further, later on, I actually had met your husband a number of years before.
Before I knew him.
Met. And it was so great to see you guys get together, and now to see the life that you've built. It's so refreshing and heartwarming to see what you guys have done together.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I landed in New York City, and my first job was shooting fashion shows, both front row and backstage for Vogue. And then I took that into street style. This was back when only Bill Cunningham was shooting for the New York Times. Street style was not really captured the way it is today. And I just had so much fun dressing up for the job, and I have such a love of creative expression and personal style that was very much about fashion at the time, but then it translated into your house, your apartment, your car, your sports. Like it's the whole life experience of the person and the authenticity that comes through in personal style. I think that the love of New York City and the people that live there, the quote unquote diehard New Yorkers, which I still consider myself, by the way, like New Yorker living in Philadelphia.
And let's talk a little bit about this house in particular. When you guys moved back to Chestnut Hill, it's a really beautiful traditional style, kind of like outside of Philadelphia suburb kind of house.
Yes.
We were driving around.
House.
It's a stone house.
It's called known as Wissahickon schist, which is a kind of silvery rock that has a lot of metallic in it, and it crumbles very easily, and it's the bedrock of a large part of Philadelphia. The stones are about this big. Gray stone houses are a part of Philadelphia.
Right. And why this house? What drew you to this house? What do you love about being in this specific house?
Well, we moved here during COVID. We actually lived across the street, and we were renting that house from a friend of ours. And They moved back in, the owners came back.
Sure.
And we also had a third child who, our crib was in the hallway because we had outgrown the house at just the right time when the owners came back. And this house we knew was available and we were introduced to them. We're very lucky to be here. And I remember thinking, this is a bigger house than I've ever lived in. And so I think immediately there was that feeling of like, okay, we have to furnish everything. But we had bedroom doors just closed and empty for the longest time until we were ready. And still the house has this nice airy quality. I like houses to feel like they're breathing. I like furniture that has a lot of legs and not a lot of upholstery that hits the floor. Because I like the energy that goes under furniture that way. I love a room to feel like confetti has gone off and things have just sort of like landed ever so slightly in just the right place. So I don't like things to feel too nailed down, too red, white, and blue, too like bougie.
And that's what I love is you have the bones, the architectural bones are beautiful from, I think this house is
1890.
So beautiful kind of like architectural details and bones, great proportions, but then you have a Scandinavian, dining table, and then you have mixed with the rattan chairs in the living room. So you have the bones that sort of create that beautiful formality, but then you create a less formal and fun and punchy decor, so that it kind of brings that formality down a little bit.
This is the entry hall.
So gracious.
This is like classic, center hall.
Yes.
Entry with the beautiful staircase. And here we have this like amazing gardening table that my sister called us just a few weeks ago and said, I don't have room for this in my house anymore. Do you want it? And so we figured out how to get it into our house, and I love it because again it has this beautiful green color. We have just the normal things that we use, like my hat and this little fox that belonged to my husband when I first met him, and then I've hung one of my grass tennis courts above it,
which also in that beautiful green that you love.
Yes, and
it's also important, obviously you can tell this is sort of like the grand central of the house, this main thoroughfare, and your love of tennis and all the activities that the families partake in.
It's like, okay, I'm gonna go play tennis.
Off to
Bye.
go. Absolutely. But you can tell that there's so much activity right in this area.
Yeah, and it's like I definitely paint things that I use.
Right.
And so that's the number one inspiration for my artwork is real life. And sometimes they're not things that I use personally, but things that I admire that other people use. But mostly it starts from my own passions. Like my sport is tennis. I've played since I was since I was 11, and I played in high school and tournaments, all that kind of thing. So I use that as a reference, and I always love like the graphic quality, the lines on the court, and it's so simple. And I find real beauty in that. Everything you love works together. I do love having, the energy that's able to flow under the table, showing the legs, not too much clutter, if possible.
That's hard with 3 little children.
Yeah.
And these, the sconces.
So these were here when we got here, and they had these glass covers, and so I bought these cheaper little shades because I wasn't going to replace everything. I'm kind of like use what you got kind of person. I just took my own watercolor paper and I painted these and I cut them to size, and so that's sort of like a little cheat thing that I did, and I did more over here. More
confetti. And then the most beautiful confetti, all of the family pictures.
Yeah, so these are just a bunch of family photos and artwork from my son up here.
I love the mixture. You know, you have silver, but then there's plastic, and then there's wood, and it's just that mixture that makes it feel cozy and casual and
yeah,
not too
like
formal.
this is was a Valentine's gift for my husband. It's just stickers I put on a frame during COVID because we couldn't go out and shop for anything. So I just took an existing frame and doctored it up. This is our guest book, which we got when we got married. And it starts with everybody signing it at our wedding. And there's been many, many opportunities where we have forgotten to take this guest book out when we
but
posted.
It's in a perfect spot.
Yeah, but it has pretty much everyone we love has signed this guest book. And if you haven't, it's probably because we forgot to take it out.
Because you're having too much fun.
We're having too much fun.
Yeah,
more photos over here. We have, this was a needlepoint S that my sister gave us for Christmas, for Schelter and for Schumacher. You know, also frames that my son made preschool. So this
cute.
is kind of like, this ends up being a space where my kids slide down the stairs on towels or blankets. They put on music and they run around on the rug and they do cartwheels and they build forts here. And we also have huge train tracks they like to build here. So, you know, the temptation was like, okay, put a table centered under the lamp with, you know, and that would be the more traditional thing to do. But I just like to have like, you know,
dancing room,
dance party,
roll up the rug,
roll up your sleeves. And so now I can take you into the living room.
Wonderful.
It was painted like a yellow color and it's north facing and it's incredibly overgrown with bushes. So in other words, it doesn't get a lot of light and it could easily feel cold. And unfortunately, these beautiful fireplaces do not function anymore. So how do you create warmth in a dark space? The first thing was to cover up the fireplace so that you can still see the beautiful mantle but not feel sad every time you look and realize that you can't light a log. So I put this huge photograph of me and Chris dancing at a party that I blew up and just had mounted to gator board.
Which is a great representation of how we met back in the
Yes,
day. This is exactly a perfect representation of those years.
This was taken the year that we got engaged, but before our wedding. So we're at a party and
having a good
just
time.
Was captured the perfect moment. This is one of my large peonies. This is actually a limited edition print that's made from an original, and then we blew it up enormous. And so I think that choosing the pink wall color was the first thing I did. I said I knew I wanted to be warm. I don't want it to be like Barbie pink. And I looked at a lot of books and again, I had pinks in mind that I knew looked great in other spaces, but because this is going to tend towards gray very easily because it sort of has a darker natural light, you just have to do trial and error. And I did maybe 15 different like tester sheets. The other cheat for when you're painting a room is don't put the tester right on the wall. Put it on a large piece of illustration board and you can move it around the room and see what it looks like next to furniture. And then you can reuse it for other rooms. So I keep all my testers, so you never know.
And you write the company and the name on the back so that you keep it all
number.
Organized.
This is Benjamin Moore Fairest Pink. And I think I even looked online, like Architectural Digest was like, here are the 20 best pink colors. And one of the colors in that article was the first color I painted this room and realized it was all wrong. And so you really just never know. You have to end up going with what you love.
And I love these the Japanese maple leaves.
Yeah, I cut those out of the driveway.
Gorgeous.
Cut them out of the tree.
But again, like the texture and bringing the outside in.
Yeah, bringing the outside in.
It adds so much to a room.
These lampshades are sort of like a little experiment of mine where this lamp was white and I painted it the Pharaoh and Ball caulk green, sort of glossy. And then I just drew my geranium leaves. I painted them on just to sort of see, because one of my dreams is to develop a fabric and a wallpaper line, and I'm working on that now. So This is how I tested out in my own house. Like, I figured out a way to cut the paper and then wrap it around, and it's just, a lampshade is a hat for a lamp, and so it's all about the right shape. And then I'm going to show you how I did this here. Just using these clips in the back here. And then
I love
it's
it.
like
Your laboratory in effect.
Yeah, lab in effect. Just warning, don't turn the lamp on because it might blow up in flames.
It might catch fire. And this sofa couch.
Oh yeah, this is a great sofa.
I know, and
great story.
Okay. Yes,
so we moved
tell.
back. So this room ends up looking like Ivy at the Shore restaurant circa 1984. This is a Ralph Lauren yellow chintz. This couch belonged to a friend of mine that I knew growing up. And when we moved back, they were her mom was moving and downsizing their house, and they had an estate sale in their house. And I think I paid like $150 for this couch. Another friend put it in the back of their pickup truck, carried it in here. I gave them a bottle of wine. The rest is history.
Yeah.
I did update it because the cushions are a little not as fluffy. So I had these beautiful down cushions custom made with Lisa Corti fabric, and they're so you can hug them. It makes the couch, it now becomes half down. And then I have these beautiful John Robshaw pillows, and again, everything you love goes together. I feel
like Mr. Lauren would be so happy that this sofa is still in use.
Yeah, it's sort of this is the intersection of the old traditional Chestnut Hill with the modern Kate version.
And these rattan chairs are just great.
Yeah, I bought these on Craigslist, and we rented a U-Haul, my husband and I, and we drove out to New Jersey and picked them up.
Was that the same trip for the sideboard or a separate trip?
No, there's so many trips. I have a saint of a husband who's always game to put something in the back of his truck or help me pick up furniture. This is a beautiful Pierre Frey fabric, which I love because it looks like brush strokes.
And your beautiful console table.
This was another friend who was moving out of town, and she said, I have this, what is it called? The
Parsons
table in this amazing green lacquer color. And I was like, perfect, I have just the right place for it. And so that came in here very nicely. And then the artwork, this is a Damien Hirst print. I think this was the first major piece of artwork. It was a gift. It was the first piece of artwork I ever kind of had that was an esteemed piece. And
I remember that in New York. That was
in
your
apartment
in New York.
This is the best piece of artwork because you can literally put it in any color room and it goes.
Yeah.
And I love that, and it has personal meaning behind it. This is a John Darien settee that's covered in this red Belgian linen. But what happened is with our kids, they started climbing on it and it became very threadbare. So rather than reupholster it while my kids are still 3, 5, and 11 and getting dirty fingers on everything, I just threw a tablecloth over it and it works. And it brings in the color of the pink striped Dury rug. And so it's just another way of you can reinvent things and put them in different rooms and different houses.
And this gallery wall is so great.
Yes. This is an iteration of a gallery wall that we had in our last apartment in New York. And I actually used a photograph of that when we hung this, because when you figure out a gallery wall, it's sort of like putting a puzzle together. So I just used a reference that we already had, and it has artwork, my own artwork. It has these lipsticks. This is one of the original paintings I did when I was on vacation, painting what I had packed with me. This is a figurative drawing that I did in college of a live nude model, Hugo Guinness. It's a photograph that I was the art director and stylist for an old Hollywood shoot that I did when I was in New York. Picture of me 9 months pregnant with my first daughter. This is an Arthur.
Is that in Cape Cod?
Yes, it is.
I love it. You can totally feel that with the gangway and the dock in the backyard.
I was so hot and so pregnant, and I got up at 7 in the morning and I went swimming thinking no one will notice me. And who notices me but the one photographer who's also a member at our club. He said, can I go get my camera and I'll take a picture of you? And then We had a gelatin silver print made out of it, and Chris gave it to me as a gift.
I love that.
This is a $15 ceramic yard sale find. That's been with me for 20 years in lots of different apartments. This is my friend Mike Weymouth's painting of the beach in Tulum. We bought this, we went to Arthur Elgort's studio in New York, and we got this, and I love it. It's Kate Moss riding an elephant, and I believe it's in Nepal or India. And then some of my paintings, sunglasses, geranium. This is a needlepoint of birds.
Love it.
So again, whatever you love, it all goes together. These are some turbans that I bought from John Robshaw. They're not his fabric, but they're actual Indian turbans that are lined with Indian newspapers. And we wear them when we go to when we have people over for fun.
Party hats.
Party hats. But I love how they're like this graphic shape.
It's clever, It's like the texture, the pattern. They all play so beautifully in this room.
Yeah, and I love John Robshaw's fabric.
And the slipper chairs.
And this is a little a note tucked in. This is from Christmas time. My daughter wrote to her little fairy, because we play that game where you have to hide the elf all over, and anyway, I just think it's sweet to leave that in there. It's like a little memory.
Yes.
We don't know how much longer she'll want to write those notes for. And this is a Guy Wiggins painting of Washington Square Park in New York City. And so
New York's always with you.
New York's always with me. So a few other things to point out is I painted these little side tables that were natural wood. I painted them in the same green as I painted the lamp. And so you'll start to see through lines. Like, I always think it's great to have certain elements from one room carry over into the next. And that can be color, that can be a certain fabric.
And it's fitting that you have Haute Bohemians on the ottoman.
Oh, gosh.
Because I feel like this is a sort of representative of that sort of style movement, the book that Miguel Flores Viana did a couple of years ago.
I love that book.
It's so inspiring, and I love that that's front and center.
And this candelabra is my sister gave me as a gift, and I just like filling it with all different colors. And again, the confetti vibe.
Exactly.
So that's pretty much.
What a cozy, comfortable, livable room.
Thank you. Yeah, and the kids like to jump on all the furniture. Doesn't matter how many times I tell them not to, they do it anyway. So.
Well. Even though you are a New Yorker at heart, you grew up here in Chestnut Hill in Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia, and you had your parents here, your siblings, and now you're back creating your own life with Christopher and your children. And I think it's sort of apropos that we're here, not too far from where you grew up.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a homecoming, and sometimes I can feel like I have ghosts from the past, not bad ghosts, but just there's a lot of spirits. There's a lot of memories here. And for sure, when we were, it took us about a year and a half to extricate ourselves from New York. I was sort of leaving, kicking and screaming, although we were leaving because I was pregnant with our second child, which we were so excited about. And we just knew that when that happened, we would need more space.
Right.
And we looked around. We did the whole sort of check out all the different areas that were close enough to still get back to New York. And in the end, I just said, I know that I loved growing up in Philadelphia, and we used to come into New York City all the time when I was a girl and in high school. I always kind of just knew I was going to live in New York. I just was aware that there was this other place, but Philadelphia is beautiful. We live in a very bucolic setting. It's sort of known as the Garden District of Philadelphia, has very historic houses, and sort of like a not overly manicured feeling where the plants are growing wild, and I just love that. It's not too precious or pretentious. The challenge has been to evolve my creativity and my personal style as a mother and having 3 children now, and keeping myself interested and feeling that inspiration even though I'm not in New York City, and how do I create that for myself, and how do I make my own life that's not my parents' life? You know, how do Chris and I raise our kids in a way that's very authentic to us?
I love that you said that you find Chestnut Hill to be unpretentious and not too precious, because I think that where you grew up is actually a great way to, not that we're defining your style, but I think those are 2 characteristics of your style. And I think as we walk around the house today, you'll see there are beautiful, precious things, but they're presented and they're mixed in an eclectic way that doesn't feel pretentious. You know, it's not too precious, it's beautiful. There's great heritage with some of the pieces, but you really mix multiple different sort of like either genres or countries or backgrounds of different design movements all together. And I think that creates a very creative and cozy and familial way to live.
Yeah, I mean, the number one rule for design and art is it has to be something that you love. Period, full stop. The wonderful thing about having your own space is that you have the liberty of experimentation and trying things and making mistakes. I think that's the difference between having your own house and maybe being like a professional interior designer.
Right.
Is that, for example, when we moved into this house, I knew I wanted a pink living room because the room faces north, and I wanted it to be cozy, and I didn't want it to feel, I wanted it to feel unexpected and just like, I love the color pink. We painted it a Pharaoh Ball Nancy's blushes, which I had loved in other places, and it just did not work. I came in and the painters were done, and I said, okay, I made a mistake. So then I went down the rabbit hole of choosing, 15 different Benjamin Moore pinks, and just, I had a lot of fun with it, and I eventually found the right pink. It had to be a lot lighter. So case in point that whether you're hanging a picture or choosing a paint color or, I continuously move things around the house. I rehang things. I hold objects in my hand and walk all over the house. And I say, like, do you want to be here? Do you want to be here? Do you want to be here? My friend John Darien had a great tip for me years ago. He said, take pictures of things in groups that you like, and then that will help you, make a composition in your house. But I think that you want to have groupings of objects that are friends. And sometimes there's like the odd guy out or the odd girl out, and that wonkiness makes it work. It makes it not feel too like perfect.
Right. Speaking of John Darien, I'm glad you brought his name up, because I feel like you probably have been inspired, whether they're friends or people whose aesthetic you love.
I love John, and we were first friends. We both spent a lot of time in Cape Cod, and we met in New York City. He was the first person to sell my original watercolor paintings. Hashtag Kate's Watercolors.
Out of his wonderful emporium down on 2nd Street, I think it is.
His store. So that was like, I remember, again, just approaching him being like, well, what would you think if maybe, and he was like, sure, let's try it. And the other thing he told me, because I remember I brought, just a portfolio of unframed paintings to him, and we kind of decided which ones, the grouping of maybe 20 paintings, which ones we would frame. And he said to me, he's like, don't think of what's going to sell, think about what you love, and think about the grouping of paintings and objects that you want to put together. And that has been advice that I come back to a lot. Okay, this is the dining room, and I love it. It is painted Pharaoh and Ball Mizzle, which is this beautiful gray-green that we've had in 4 different houses and apartments. And it fills with natural sunlight, so the chromatic green really comes out with the sunlight. Over here we have these French reproduction settees that are covered in this like beautiful pink Belgian linen. And the Brunch Rig and Feast Les Touches.
Yes.
Had these little
The classic.
love these round little bolsters.
Bolster pillows. And I love the way that the pink really pops. And, as we were saying, it's like you have this like French, inspired settee, but then you have a really fun pop of color that brings the sort of like formality down, and it's fun. And
it's pink and green, but it's secondary grayish pink and green. It's not like the expected, it's not the expected pink and green. Then I have all these plates here that I've painted.
And collected throughout the years.
Yeah, mixed with some sort of like more traditional English ceramics.
Yeah.
I painted these with the hearts. Some artwork from my daughter, a tiny little avocado. And just like a collection of objects that, some matchbooks from my favorite restaurants.
And this Scandinavian table is absolutely stunning.
Yes,
there must be a story behind this.
Yeah, this was like the first big furniture purchase I think I ever made. We bought it from friends of ours in Cape Cod who have a business called Design Works. And they specialize in Scandinavian country antiques. And it's what it's called scrub pine, meaning it may have been painted at one time, but then they dipped it and removed all the paint. So it actually reads as like wooden floors, and it has this great patina of all the dings and oil and stains on the table. And I just love it. For more formal in the winter, I like to cover it in a tablecloth. But in the summery, warmer months, I love seeing the natural wood.
Right.
And it actually comes apart. All the pieces are carpentry pieces that fit with they all fit together.
Yeah.
And so there's no nails or glue. It's just all fit together that way. And then the top just lifts off.
The original IKEA, assemble at home.
Yeah. This is much easier to assemble.
You're right. No instructions needed.
Yeah. And then this is a bench that my daughter made in 5th grade in wood shop.
That's so great.
It's a Quaker meeting house bench.
I love these little details down here.
Yeah. It has the detail
That's
here.
So great. The next generation already showing their capable skills.
And then we have this bench, which is a beautiful sort of classic American piece that we bought at an estate sale in Cape Cod. And it's like super banged up. It was probably in somebody's garage or, workshop. And, the paint is scuffed. It's all dinged up. I had to put tape on it because there was like a nail poking through. But when we sit here as a family, the kids always sit here on this side because it's a little higher and just less formal, and people can slide in and out.
And as you were saying, it's like no matter where that bench came from, you see the life in it, the stories, the generations.
The patina.
The patina. I love it. And then the sideboard and the tea set, it looks so great.
This is the sideboard that Chris had in his bachelor Upper East Side apartment when I met him. He bought this at auction.
Is this the one he went to pick up in New Jersey?
Yes, and I was like, I'll come with you.
So were you more interested in the sideboard or Chris?
I was really interested in the fact that there was a guy that I was dating who liked going to auctions and liked furniture. And then this is my great-grandmother's silver tea set. And very fascinating, when we were watching Downton Abbey, there's a close-up with the exact same tea set. And so I don't know if it's from that same exact time or if it was just a prop, but I was like, wait, pause. And I was like, that's the one. It has the exact decorative elements. And I love to use these for vases. I once had a tea party and I used the whole thing. These are other wedding gifts. This is a quail that we named George. We bought it on eBay. When we were still dating, it hung in Chris's apartment, and it's getting a little frail on the ends. I think it's sort of disintegrating.
It's in mid-flight.
These are 2 French reproduction chairs that I think I bought for $5 at an estate sale or a yard sale. So there's a real mixture of high and low.
Which is the beauty of this house. Mix the mixture. It's all in the mix.
And up here we have this beautiful Astier de Villat tureen that was a wedding gift, flanked by these amazing sheep that my mom gave me. They belong to my grandmother, and I I said, I just love those. And if you look at the eyes, these sheep are rolling their eyes. They're like, girl.
And I love the texture of the wool on the sheep. I mean, you just don't see
and
that.
you can put
Are these
little
English, I'm assuming?
yeah, they are. You can put England. You can put flowers in them, and I've just put these quail feathers that were actually, Chris has gone on a few hunting trips, and he brings back feathers from his hunting trips. And so I kind of use them. I always love upward movement when there's a high ceiling.
And feathers just give such a unique texture.
Yes.
You know, like the sort of fraying of the edges.
Yeah, and these are like littler feathers that we've collected on the beach with our
Cape
kids.
Cod,
And, you know, it just brings, again, that natural element inside. And candles, I'm a huge fan of taper candles. And I love them in pink, purple, green, all the, you know, untraditional colors. They can echo the flower colors and obviously the pink of the pink settee.
Well, and also we should talk about the flowers because you have such a beautiful way of arranging flowers. And, you know, yesterday we went down to the farm, to the cutting garden, and we just, all of these dahlias, and we took beautiful branches, and you just arrange things beautifully. And as you said, it's like confetti. It's like a party in a vase.
A party in a vase. I love, so my friend Andrew Olson has this amazing farm about 15 minutes from our house, and he lets people come and just, you know, pick an armful of their own stems. And he has the most incredible dahlias. And I love a flower arrangement to look the way flowers look when they're growing in the garden. In other words, long stems up high. I like things to go out and up. And like you said, party in a vase. I love all the pinks and burgundies and little splashes of color and bright colors from the zinnia. And I also have these paper flowers, which are from my friend Livia Chetty from the Green Vase. And these are great because in the winter when it's harder to find the blooms, paper flowers, you know, I've mixed in a feather here as well. I think in bigger spaces, it's just the way you have drama introduced from a ceiling light fixture. If you can go up with a bouquet or a plant or something that's sculptural that breaks up the space to give it like a depth of field, that's always creates intrigue. And you can do that with plants, you can do it with flowers or sculptures if you have sculptures.
And we have a few pieces here, but I know that you love to entertain, you love to cook, you love to bring people into your home and share meals, share just sort of like a vibrant time. Tell us how you like to entertain here.
Well, what I really love to do is host potlucks because I love to cook for like 6 to 8 people max, and then after that I think it becomes stressful and you have to either have help or you have to have less guests,
right.
because you won't be able to relax and enjoy your guests because you'll be too busy cooking. And
these are beautiful.
But when I have more than 10 people to the house, it's always, if it's not a potluck situation, it's I'll bring a salad, I'll bring a dessert, you know, I'll make the main course. And so friends, we all kind of share the responsibilities, and that way you are surprised with what other people bring. But yeah, I always have everybody put all the food on the table, and then we always pull the chairs out to the side. You know, you can grab a plate, sit here on the windowsill. It's sort of like we pull the settees up to the table. People can sit wherever they want. They can take it into the living room. They can sit on the staircase. It's just sort of like, again, trying to break up that formal quality that I do associate with growing up here, and trying to make it less formal, more playful, more available to people of all ages. So
I can just imagine all the children running around trying to get first dibs on the hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah, that's the other benefit of sitting kids on a bench. It's like they're like locked in. Although it still doesn't last very long.
Right, exactly, for 5 minutes.
One more thing I want to show you is this is a stool that my grandmother did the needlepoint for. It has my birth year and my name, and she made one for all of her grandchildren.
So
I got
special.
a giraffe.
And was there any significance behind the giraffe for Kate?
No, I don't think so. That's a good question. But once my mom moved from the house that we grew up in, she gave these to all of us. And so this has been in all of my apartments and now our house here.
In your book, you talk about do's and don'ts. You buy things that you love and buy things that are special, buy things that perhaps are important or have a pedigree. And you'll see today as we're going around the house, these sort of pieces that jump out at you. And I think you guys have been great at collecting throughout the years,
Yeah.
Maybe when you were living, in your apartment in New York, you bought some smaller things or a special chair, and they've stood the test of time.
Yes.
And, they follow you where you go. And I think to your point, you're really telling the story of your lives, but also like the generations perhaps that came before you. I mean, I love, as we'll see later, the your great grandmother's tea set, silver tea set that stands over here on the sideboard. And that just by having it, it's telling a story of your family.
Yes.
And I think that everyone will see that throughout this house, that you have sort of older pieces mixed with modern pieces, mixed with bright pops of color. I think your use of color just in general is pretty brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, I love color.
I look forward to kind of taking everybody around and showing them what we're discussing here, but bringing it to life.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that because one of the first dates that Chris and I had, we've been together since 2009. He bought a sideboard that is over there, very formal, dark wood. He bought it at auction and he was sort of like, well, I'm driving to New Jersey to pick it up from the auction house. And I was like, can I come? And then we would go to auctions in New York and you would just find stuff that in a store would be $5,000 and it would be like $150 at an auction. We bought these 2 matching settees at auction, but back when we lived in separate apartments. And then when we finally got married, we had them reupholstered and sort of made them our own.
Absolutely.
Again. And that was also a challenge. I remember when we came back from our honeymoon and I think we still had 2 separate apartments. Like the leases were ending and we were going to move in together.
New York real estate issues. That
Yeah, exactly. Like it's too hard. You have to kind of keep your apartment and until you really know. And I remember we moved into our first joint apartment as a married couple, and it was bigger than any apartment that I'd lived in or he'd lived in. And we had so much extra stuff. I called, Housing Works, and I was like, we have so much to donate, And I remember being really sad because certain things just didn't fit, but we tried to keep as much as we could. But yeah, you have to blend certain things that, you might have been given from family members if you're lucky, or, one person brings from their life, the other person brings, and how do those color schemes, how do those styles go together? I mean, we have had many an argument over hanging a gallery wall or like, where does this chair go? Because things represent something much bigger.
Right.
I think I've learned that I have to ask permission from my husband before I move something that belongs to him. He really does not like that.
And likewise, he asks you for permission too.
Yeah, well, I'm really the one who's always moving stuff around.
He just wants it to stay put.
And I had to learn that there's meaning for where he puts everything, and to try to respect that. So it's a learning process, I think. And then you add kids to the mixture, and you put something down, and then you come back in an hour, and it's not where you left it. You're like, where is it? Oh, it's destroyed, or the kids have drawn on the wall, or they've decided to take all the pillows from every sofa and make a fort in the front hall. So there has to be that casual, fluid, flow in a house too.
Yeah.
You have to make room for that.
You love to cook, and it's, I would imagine, probably the most utilized room in the house. With
Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever get out of the kitchen. When your kids have to eat like basically every 2 hours.
Well, fortunately, you have a bar.
Yes.
Close by.
Yeah, so this is, I love to lean artwork against the wall in the bar. This is a really special photograph of Chris and I before we were engaged, running in the fields of Millbrook.
Oh, up in Millbrook, at Mishomic.
Yep. And we look very, very happy. And so sometimes you have to remind yourself of how happy you were.
And are.
Yeah, and are. When life gets to
tense.
be full of responsibility, you have to remember the freer, more carefree days.
Yes, and I love the watercolor of the code flags.
Yeah, so when Chris joined the Coast Guard, their motto is Semper Paratus, which means always ready. So I wrote that out in nautical signal flags, and then I put his initials CJS at the bottom.
I love that.
So that is nautical code for Semper Paratus CJS.
And you always have to be ready with the family.
Yeah, exactly. Everything. It always has to be ready. This is another
yes, we love
lacquer,
the lacquer company.
Ice Bucket. This was his collaboration with Rita Koenig.
Yes.
Obsessed with this color, yellow. Yellow is very hard to do, and that color is perfect. And you can see it actually over here in my amazing lemon head lady, which I'm obsessed with. We like to put weeds and flowers for her hair, and the bigger the better.
Yes, brings Italy to you.
Yeah, always brings joy. A watermelon painting by my daughter. I try to frame my kids' work.
Just like your mother did for you.
Exactly. And it's like you will never draw like that again past a certain age, or paint like that again.
I don't think I could even do that now.
I remember when she painted this when she was 4 years old in preschool. And I walked into her classroom and the teacher had all the kids' watermelon drawings on the room, and I was like, I'll take every single one. I love it so much.
And probably reminds you of J.G. Mellon's on the Upper East Side.
Oh yeah, that too.
Best burger in
now
town.
that you reminded me of it. This is...
I love this modern, yes.
Another great way to work with a space is to have a pendant lamp over your table. This was sort of a splurge for me that I had on my inspiration board for a really long time, was this beautiful semi-pendant lamp from Design Within Reach. And then over the Eero Saarinen table,
yeah, of course.
which we have this kind of Pierre Dalle looking tablecloth on top, because otherwise my kids would have destroyed this table. And this is like this Provence fabric print, and it's covered in it's almost like wax cotton. It's like acrylic, so you can literally spill anything. This table looks brand new because it
is protected.
Never sees the light of day because my kids would destroy it. But again, this is my ideal dining situation. This table is perfect to seat 6 to 8 people. And unlike the dining room table, which is long and sort of creates this formality, this is like people are passing food across the table. Has my kids' chairs.
Right. I know, again, all your collection of chairs.
Again, the orphanage of chairs.
Yes. Well,
we even brought in one from the dining room with a pillow. It's just sort of like, one of these days I'm going to paint all the chairs a different color.
When you get around to it.
When I get around to it.
But the modern, I love this, the modern, the Saarinen and this pendant. I mean, it's simple, it's clean, but set in a sort of more, traditional home.
And it works because it actually, they kind of just disappear.
Yeah.
But there's something so satisfying. And I think that I must have had this table on my inspiration board for 5-10 years. And when we moved to this house, I finally said, okay, I'm going to get it because I know that I want it. And sometimes you have to give yourself permission to treat yourself.
Absolutely.
This is
this is amazing because with technology these days, I love that there's an analog calendar here to keep the family running.
There has to be. It's the only way it works, because otherwise Chris has his calendar, I have mine, the kids have theirs. And this is where anything that affects anyone else in the family has to be written in pencil or paper on this calendar, so that you can't say, oh, well, I told you I was going to do that. It's has to be on the calendar. This is my family photo by the photographer Bev Hall that we had taken of me and Chris, Teddy, Daphne, and Charlotte, and so special.
Absolutely.
And then this is my awesome like extended calendar that we change every day. And so this is my calm wall of a very hectic family schedule. And then my favorite thing to do in this room is just come in here and open this up, and you know, you have the garden out here. So all this natural light.
Perfect. On a beautiful day like this, you
On a
just let the
beautiful day.
outside in.
Don't look too closely out here because my son has built like a booby trap. Crazy thing with all of his toys and the hose.
And your geraniums.
And my
the signature
geraniums.
geraniums.
Yes. So
What a beautiful place to spend time.
it's all about south-facing natural light. I'll take it.
I do want to talk to you a little bit about how you started as an artist, because I feel like that is sort of the cornerstone of your work now. Where did that begin?
How far back do you want to go?
Far back as you like. Well, we're here in
Okay,
Chestnut
yeah.
Hill, so
So I basically had a mother who always made sure I had a crayon or a colored pencil or marker or paintbrush in my hand. I have very early memories of playing dress up, like with old, you know, clothes from my great aunt's closet when she passed away, or things that my mother made. We had a chest and I could dress up. I love to dress up. And I love to paint, I love to draw. My mom always framed artwork of mine as a child, and so I think that there was always a subtle value. Like I always felt like what I was doing mattered, and so I'm very grateful for that. And then I studied art in high school, and then I was very fortunate to have an art education at the Rhode Island School of Design. I studied design and photography there, but I always would, you know, I kept rigorous sketchbooks, and I always had watercolors with me, and I would paint when I was traveling. I spent a year abroad in Italy in an honors program with the school, and this was before computers, so everything I was doing was hand-drawn letter forms. And I painted a lot. And then when I got to New York, I would paint when I went on vacation. So I always would pack my watercolor paints, small scale. And I started by actually painting whatever I would pack in my suitcase. So I started painting my sunglasses, my shoes, lipsticks, perfume, bikinis, little dresses I would pack, like hats. So all of, again, these things that were like personal style indicators, but it was very subconscious. I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna do a painting of this. It was just sort of like, this is what's packed in my suitcase. Right. So this is what I'm gonna paint. I don't love painting landscapes or architectural scapes or portraits as much. And then I think from there, I had some of my artwork hanging in my apartment in New York, and friends of mine, you know, that were in the industry, fashion industry, I did a lot of styling work and art direction. They would come over to my apartment and be like, I really like that painting. And who did that? And I was like, oh, I did it. I was like, but I'm not a painter. You know, I just did it for fun. And so naturally, people started to ask me to do illustration commissions for the same brands that I was doing fashion work for. So it was sort of like same work, different medium. And then that really took off. I mean, I think for many years, I was sort of like feeling like that feeling in New York where you're like trying to fit in, trying to find your place. And then when I started doing the illustration work, it just was so effortless and so me that I just felt like that resonated with my audience. And it didn't feel like I was trying. It was just sort of like, oh, like this is my hand. It was like handwriting. It's like, this is just what I do.
And I love how you really took that skill and talent and vision. And I remember reading in Architectural Digest, you had done an interiors mural, I believe in Maine for Marina.
It was it was for Marina in her apartment in New York.
Oh, that was in New York. Oh, for some reason I thought it was in Maine.
Yes.
But I remember seeing that and thinking, oh my gosh, she's almost sort of like it's like an artistic or painted version of Rose Tarlow, you know, the famed sort of interior designer from Los Angeles. It very much brings the outside in quite literally with vines growing up the wall and such. I love this grand staircase.
Ta-da-da! So Jeff, this is my studio.
Oh, how amazing. Look at all this natural light.
Yeah, it has a south-facing window and what would that be? East? No, north?
West.
West. 2 exposures. But yeah, it gets...
Southwest versus northwest.
Southwest, yes. So this is the opposite of the light in the living room, which is very dark. This has a warm glow, and I always gravitate towards as much natural light as possible when I'm painting. This is my geranium mural.
Yes, this is the mural that we were referencing.
Yes, and I've put a pot of geraniums down here in the sadly unworking fireplace, but always like to incorporate real plants whenever possible.
Yeah.
And when I do my murals, I don't sketch them out. I just climb up the ladder and sort of improvise.
And this is what you did in LA for San Vicente Bungalows.
Yes,
absolutely.
And I did the mural for Marina that looked very similar to this. I've done a lot of private commissions in people's houses, different flowers, but always the same larger than life scale. And
almost like hyperbolic geraniums.
Yes. Geraniums gone wild.
Right. Out next month.
Yeah.
And so this is your over here, and this is, I mean, you have your books, and you've been featured in so many different things.
Yeah, this is sort of the computer. This is where I sit and spend a lot of time.
Right.
And then I have my inspiration boards here and here of both work that I've done, and also like whenever someone's written me a thank you note or something that's like so meaningful, and I keep these close to me because, you know, sometimes you need that extra energy just to know that you're not alone in your studio working in a vacuum, that you're part of something bigger.
A larger community.
Larger community. This was when I was painting in a peony farm, Steyer's Peonies in Chadds Ford, and a photographer that I didn't even know was there took my picture, and then it was a full page
beautiful
thing. My dad called me. He's like, "You're in the paper," and I was like, "What? I don't read the Philadelphia Inquirer," but he's like, "It looked like you," and then I see your name here, and I was like, "Wow."
That's a really gorgeous picture.
So again, I keep different articles of my work up here to remind me, of things that I've done and things that I want to do. These geranium murals I have up because I'm working on a wallpaper and a fabric line, and so that just helps focus me. Here's the one from
Inspirational quotations from Winston Churchill.
Yes, keep going. When you want to give up is when you actually need to keep going.
Right, absolutely.
Persevere.
And I love this. What is this sort of sketch or drawing? It looks like the geraniums on an airplane.
Yeah.
Instead
of snakes on a plane, we have geraniums on a plane. There was this artist in the 70s called Sister Carita, and she covered large, jet airplanes with her artwork. And I have this philosophy that all surfaces are material basically everything's a blank canvas for artwork. And I have a dream of covering, an airplane with my artwork. And you think of like Virgin Airlines or something like that. I think the reason most airplanes don't have artwork on them is because the paint it's an extra weight on the plane.
Oh.
So anyway, sometimes I dream and I just put things up. I have my Oprah quote that is inspiring. Some fabric swatches from
Is that
projects.
from the Sleepy Jones?
This is from the Lake Pajamas collaboration I did. This is the fabric we made, and this is actually the original piece of artwork that the fabric was made from.
And, I'm glad you brought up Lake, and I know you also did a collaboration with Sleepy Jones. I mean, in your work, you've really collaborated with a number of different organizations, brands, and I think that it's amazing how your work translates so many different ways. Hotel, hospitality, fashion. Also, I think I love this Chateau Marmont. I think that's just a drawing, but
yes, I did a residency there, and I painted on all things Chateau Marmont. But yeah, I've done a lot of fashion collaborations. I did one with Veronica Beard where what's interesting is that people reach out to me and they have a vision for how they want to use my artwork, whether it's making fabric prints out of my artwork or lots of different ideas. And so for me, collaborating with brands is always like the most exciting request, because it becomes, what we can create together becomes something larger than what I would create on my own or what they would create. It's like you have this baby, you know, and then it can go out into the world and have a life of its own.
And it's your work being interpreted through another brand, another person that maybe is seen in a way that you hadn't necessarily thought of or had envisioned from the origin.
And I have this thing about my artwork where I love to get it out into the world. You know, like I have a large archive in my studio, but I love for my art to go to great homes, and I like it to be out there and used and appreciated. So there's sort of this like generous quality of like getting it out there, you know. And when you do brand collaborations, I have pictures of people wearing my pajamas or wearing my dresses on the red carpet, and it's so fun to see the art leap from the page into the real world.
Absolutely. And this is where it all starts.
This is where it all happens. This is a table that was a dark wood color. This was in my house growing up. I believe it was in my sister's room. And before that, it was in my parents' first apartment in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it somehow came to me at some point. I think it was in my mom's garage. I painted it Dimity White by Farrow and Ball. I actually did this kind of vinegar treatment where I thinned the paint and then combed in a design, which is sort of like an Amish paint, you know, treatment. And I have this white tablecloth from Turkey because I've worked a lot with a client in Turkey. And this is my original setup. This was actually the dining room table in our first apartment when my husband and I got married. And that's where I originally started painting, was at the kitchen table, because I didn't have a studio. I was working as a stylist and an art director at that time. And I didn't have a painting set up, so I just always left everything at the table. And then eventually when I got more space and had an area to paint, this is just the perfect size. Sorry, it's very soft, and the tablecloth absorbs any extra paint.
Right.
I use the same exact paint setup. There's a very specific palette of colors that I come back to, and brushes, and specific brand of 2B pencils.
And this looks like a new sort of body of work.
Yeah, these are some botanicals I've been working on. These are based on the same dahlias that we have in the vases downstairs. It's the same farm. I've painted at the flower farm, and then I also make arrangements and bring them back to my studio. And I have to paint as fast as I can because the flowers and their pigments change.
Right.
There's only like 2 or 3 days where they're really fresh. So those are there, and these are going to go to KRB in New York City.
Oh, great. We love KRB in
We love KRB. But you know, you'll see also I work in series, and I have, you know, I'll do a lot of smaller studies like this at my table before I do a larger work. This is sort of like figuring out color and which brush I want to use, you know, testers. So when I paint, I'm not very precious about it. I start with big pieces of paper and I score them down to smaller sizes. And I sort of treat a tester sheet the same way as I treat a large painting. I work in series, meaning like I paint like 5 to 10 paintings at one time. And sometimes I'll work on multiples if the paint is drying on one.
I love seeing the process. I mean, the way that your work ends up, it sort of looks effortless and like it's just sort of, oh, we just did this quickly. But there's so much work that goes into this. I mean, just like the testing of the colors and the amount of water and the composition. And I mean, it does take a lot of time to create these beautiful works.
I teach master classes on Zoom, and one of the things I always try to share with people is don't edit your work while you're working on it, there's like an act of painting and then there's a finished artwork, and the two are not related. So when you're painting, the same way that you would brush your teeth or cook a meal or do the dishes or vacuum the house, it's like you're just painting. Like you just have to stay active and paint. And then later on, I'll come in and I'll say like, well, this maybe is my favorite, or I'll frame this one, or sometimes my favorite is not the favorite of someone else, if we're editing or curating a gallery wall for a client. So it's really interesting. And I wanted to show you, this is my archive, and I'm going to take you through, this one I have open. I'll just take you through the iterations. I have everything organized by subject matter.
I have to say, for an artist studio, this is very organized.
Yeah,
I'm very impressed.
I'm super organized, but it's like I have all the sunglasses, and so you'll see different iterations. And a lot of these are not ones that I would, frame or sell, or maybe I will later. So we have sunglasses, then we have shoes. I have the Nike Air Jordans, the Vans.
Classic.
These are Common Project, the Adidas. And so it's like, I have two different, this would be an example of working in a series. Well, I'll do one that's really small, one that's larger.
And even then, just a slight variation on color. I mean, this almost has like a gray tint, and this is a little darker black.
And I'll decide out of the three which one I want to actually frame. And probably no one can tell the difference except for me.
And those are so cool. Oh, and the
here's
Belgian
all my
loafers.
Belgians. Everybody loves the Belgians because they're so simple. They're colorful.
Yep.
These sell like hotcakes, and they're so fun to paint.
Has Belgian shoes? Do they have one of your pieces in their store on 55th Street?
They have put my work on their Instagram for fun, but it's sort of like a crush. It's like a design crush. Right. It's like, I love your product. I'm going to paint it. They acknowledge that.
I live down the street, so maybe we'll have to take.
I know. I'm going to do a little trip down there.
Yeah.
So this is sort of how I archive my smaller work, and then the larger work is I have to get myself a flat file because it's getting insane. But these are all boxes filled with paintings.
Yeah.
Color
so
studies.
So organized. Very impressive.
Peonies. I have so many peonies.
And these, is this sort of you're in process on your wall coverings?
These are lampshades that I made. You can wear one as a hat.
Perfect.
Again, we were renting a house and it had pre-existing sconces, and I did not like the lampshades. I was so bored in the room, and so I made these accordion pleat lampshades out of watercolor paper, tied them together with an old Hermes ribbon, called it a day. And these ones were not a fire hazard. Some way the heat could ventilate better than the ones downstairs.
Well, I think this is a great example of what you probably are working on right now with your wall
Exactly.
coverings
It's like
and fabrics.
I'm just testing things out. This is like testing out a scallop shade.
Edge, sure.
And this is the sea grape pattern I did for the Colony Palm Beach. So again, it's like transitioning from the original artwork for this is very small, and we blew it up and made wallpaper out of it at the Colony. And so I just like to surround myself with a little bit of all the projects I do for clients, because now I'm trying to develop them for my own brand, for the Kate Schelter brand. And again, it's like a very simple behind the scenes process. It's like me just experimenting with things and trying out different colors, different paints. And
And I'm assuming with watercolor, you need a flat surface versus an easel,
yes,
because obviously the water would run down the...
Exactly. I have this like Costco table that I will use, and then I keep the floor clean because I will put things in the windowsills and on the floor so that the paint can dry. You have to paint with a flat surface. When I paint on location, like out in nature, I have a wood flat surface, and then I have sandbags. Because painting outside is tricky. Sometimes your painting will blow across the field. You're like, But I wasn't dry yet.
It wasn't done yet. Bring it back.
Yeah.
And I will say one thing I've noticed in your house is you have just an amazing collection of chairs. And I mean, here we obviously have a beautiful Eames chair.
Yes.
Here we have a great ladder back chair. I mean, and they all just sort of like play together.
Yeah, and this is my painting stool. This was in my bedroom when I was in 4th grade with a secretary desk. And it's my favorite stool because it's high enough, but you can also
fit your legs
your
under,
thighs under the table, which most stools are too high. Yeah, I love chairs are kind of like hats. Like you can mix them up. I bought this Eames chair at auction. The only caveat was that it did not have an ottoman, but I'll get that. Maybe it'll be a different color. Maybe it'll be like it's mix and match, you know.
It's in great shape. I mean, look at the white leather.
Yeah, I love the white because again, I love a lot of white space in my artwork. I love a lot of space in general. It's also kind of an unusual color. Most people see it in like the dark brown or the black leather. I would love to
upholster. Wood is blonde.
Yeah, the blonde wood. I would love to upholster that in my own fabric one day.
Right.
This ladder back chair was in my house growing up. I think my mom gave it to me. And I just have these like yoga blankets stacked up as a cushion. It's not the most comfortable chair, but it keeps you very alert. You know, like I don't have any one of those like crazy aerodynamic chairs, you know.
That's called like puritanical posture.
Yeah, that's called stay awake by your chair. But I have the studio screen for my Mac, and a lot of times if I'm working from a photograph, I will trace the object on the screen with tracing paper if I need to work in a larger scale. So this is kind of like an easel, and I'll just like draw on the screen.
The modern day painter's easel.
And I like to have like photos of, you know, near and dear friends, and my book here, Classic Style, and these were note cards that we did in a journal that came out when my book was published. This is an amazing
it's a gorgeous photograph.
treasure. This was a family portrait that was taken of me and my family back growing up in Chestnut Hill. So this is sort of like the then and the now. And I did
the foundation that you were talking about earlier.
And I did something that was really cool. My mom is friends with the photographer who took it, and I reached out to her, and I had her come and photograph my family in the same way. We did that 2 years ago, and the photographs are like, it's almost like a little weird, but these beautiful photographs that are very special. But there's something about this picture that I just love.
Yeah, the authenticity.
It says it all.
You know, I mean, it's just like, it's such a great little snapshot of a time, you know, that classic Americana. I mean, I think of that, I look at that and I think of Bruce Weber and his photography.
It's a photographer named Beverly Hall, and she's based in Nantucket, but she was family friends with my grandfather, and so that was very special to read. I'll show you that picture when we go downstairs. Great. It hangs in our kitchen. But I have, you know, all my art books, all my inspiration books.
And just while we're still talking about this, I feel like this photograph is a great sort of representation of how you get to classic style.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, it's like that's almost a picture of like everything that you sort of see and hear what it represents.
It is. It captures. It's a very loaded image for me, and I love it. And it's a moment in time that does not exist anymore.
But you know what? You can sense the love in that picture.
Yeah.
And you can sense the love in your house. And you can sense the love here.
The love.
All the love.
So this is my bedroom.
So charming.
The primary bedroom. This is above the living room. So again, it has it has a lot of light, but it's north-facing light, and so it's dark, which is great for sleeping and feeling cozy, but hard in terms of feeling, you know, that same bright color quality that I love. So it's painted this beautiful cream color, which is like the color of butter. It's like, you know, those 1970s Mercedes that were that beautiful yellow color. I sort of think of that. So it's cozy and warm, and it has this trim that's actually like has a pinkish tone to it. So again, it's not like that blue-white color that's cool. It's sort of a warm trim.
And with 3 children running around, you probably spend the least amount of time in this room.
Yeah, when I
sleep deprived.
Actually, we go to bed pretty early. We go to bed when the kids go to bed. But I'm obsessed with bed linens, and I love sheets and patterns and
obviously the
colors.
mixing, it looks so great. Again, the way you mix your patterns.
Thank you. I love, this scallop dust ruffle is something that I've had for 25 years. And it just kind of goes, it has because the walls are like this creamy yellow, the complement of yellow and orange is purple. So we have these sort of like lavender colored sheets. Love the vintage Deporto.
Yes, absolutely.
This is my security blanket. These are, the best are from Schweitzer Linen in New York. These super high down pillows that are just like air. And this is the softest cotton from Deporto with a scalloped edge. So I sleep with that in my arm every night. And this is a French quilt that I bought on eBay from this beautiful seller who imports all these original French textiles. And you can see that it has like these hand patches. And it's reversible. So when it's cold in the winter and you want this like more corally orange flower, you have that. And then in the summer, when I want to feel like it's super cool, I put it on this side where it's just more monochromatic.
Yeah, this is great beautiful quality.
Every bed has to have a down comforter, no matter what. It's the perfect weighted blanket. And my body temperature is always right when I have a down comforter. So I love this gingham. And then these are John Robshaw pillows. This is one of the Dahlia paintings that I just did, and I brought it in here because I love that it had these sort of like neon pink pops of color, but it also has some of the purples and the more earthy oranges that are in the room already.
And for a room that doesn't have that verdant green that you love, it's here in your work.
So this bed is my favorite bed of all time. I bought this bed when my first apartment on the Upper East Side of New York at the Spence Chapin, Memorial Sloan Kettering thrift store. It was dark mahogany. I bought it for $300 and had it delivered to my 4th floor walk-up apartment. And it had this crazy canopy with all of this expensive upholstery and curtains. And I've had it in so many different iterations. In our last house, I finally took the canopy off. I had these finials made, and they slide on the top. And I hand painted the whole thing Pharaoh Ball French gray, which is the best color ever. It goes with everything. It goes with colors. It goes with neutrals. I find it so soothing. And
also the height of the bed too. You always talk about, wanting space and air to go, underneath furniture. And like it's like a foot up.
Never put anything under a bed. It's bad feng shui. Even if you live in New York City and you have no room, don't put anything under the bed, and always make sure the bed is vacuumed underneath. And I just feel like it's a metaphor for life. Like you don't want dust balls.
Right. Avoid the dust balls.
Avoid the dust balls. Sometimes my kids will go under the bed and I'm like, ooh, there's a little dust bunny right there.
Keep it clean.
And
Is
again,
this you and Chris?
Yes. So this is like, again, another formal mantelpiece, but unfortunately the fireplace is non-functioning. But
so great that you still have this detail.
Yes.
It adds so much to the room, whether it's working or not. I just think it's so great that you really sort of celebrate that.
And sometimes I'll put a big potted plant in there, and now it's going to be, it's fall and winter, so I put the andirons in and the logs. And I like to have the life be in the flowers. Again, with the tall ceilings, it's like you want to go up. And we have this little angel that my mom brought for me from Mexico. And this is one of the other original paintings I did when I was traveling. Before I was doing artwork professionally, I painted my Ray-Ban Wayfarers. And then I found this cool vintage antique frame, and I had it restored and then framed with my artwork, which I think was a fun juxtaposition.
Really special.
These are like tester sheets for my studio, which kind of remind me of like flower petals falling down.
And do you have these in here because you want to see them in different light or see how you feel?
I like the pop of color. Like when I don't have fresh flowers in here, I like the little pops of color. This was a commission done by Frances Tolkhart, who is a dear friend of mine, and my husband had this made for me back when we only had my first daughter. And so it's Chris, me, and our first daughter, and it's this beautiful portrait, and again, framed in a very modern way. And I like sort of the juxtaposition of the antique frame with the modern frame. This was a painting done by another artist who I go to a painting retreat in Maine every summer in Penobscot Bay, and I bought another artist's work who was working in oil just to remember that time. I bought it for my husband for his birthday. And so again, it's like a window into nature. This is a painting done by my friend Edie Vonnegut, who is a neighbor of ours in Cape Cod and a lifelong family friend. Actually, Chris bought that when we were dating, and it's actually watercolor, but her skin looks very alabaster. So we thought it was appropriate to put it
on the way to
the transition into the bathroom with the bathtub, because it's like, it's almost like she's bathing in the pond at night. This is our bathroom. So I don't know what else to show you in here.
And then you have some more of the Lisa Corti.
Oh yeah, so.
And I love this this table, this sort of side table here.
Oh yes, so
it's,
this.
Again, like just the way you mix, like these beautiful sort of like side, nightstands, but obviously with a cupboard at one point.
This is more of the Scandinavian scrub pine furniture that I love, that blondish light wood. And this was a chair that another friend gave us when she and her husband, they're my parents' friends, they were downsizing. And then these are pillows that are Lisa Corti fabric. When you buy a dress from her, she gives you a little tote bag, and they fit perfectly the boudoir pillow size. So I just kind of put them here. And
very
again,
ingenious.
It's that purple and pink pops of like that you find in the dahlias. This is a lacquer company table. My dear friend James, that's his company.
Yep. We love the lacquer company.
This was his collaboration he did with Veer Grenny. And these are some books by friends of mine.
Yeah.
And
never have too many books.
Yeah. I think in the bedroom, I really do like a more subdued, calm feeling, because I really come in here. I don't really hang out in my bedroom except for when I'm sleeping or reading, sometimes meditating, but it's not the most active, there's more like life and activity in the other parts of the room. I like this space to be very calm and restorative. So I try to keep it clean. I didn't hang too much artwork everywhere because I just wanted it to be like,
it's very soothing.
Yes, soothing.
So, Kate, I mean, this has been so wonderful to sit down with you and really kind of go back through our years together, but also just learning things about you and really hearing your perspective, one-on-one. I guess in closing, for this part, for this conversation, to you, what is home, and what makes this home your home? And I guess also in general, what is home to you?
Home is where the art is. I know it's kind of a corny thing to say, but really, like, for me as an artist and a designer, it's like home is where you get to express yourself, and there's nobody to impress except for yourself. And it's like, what are your favorite colors? What are your favorite furnitures, types? And how do you want to use your house? Do you want it to be private? Do you want to have guests over? So I just use my house as sort of like the whole house is like my studio. It's like a laboratory for experimentation and constantly moving things around and changing things up.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
So happy to be here.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.